Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining the first of our webinar series, The Secret to Supercharging Employee Engagement. Vimeo launched this series because we know that both employers and employees often list communication as one of the top challenges inhibiting employee engagement. I'm thrilled to be kicking off this session with none other than Vimeo own internal communication lead, Dominique Scott, Dom, as we call her here. Please tell the audience about yourself.
Hi, Yawa. Thanks. I'm glad to be here. So I'm Dom Scott. I lead employee communications here at Vimeo. I've been with the company about 2.5 years. Um, Previously, I spent nearly a decade on the agency side of communications, leading corporate comm strategies for a bunch of multinational organizations. On the personal side, I live in New York. I've been here 5.5 years. And in addition to my work at Vimeo, I'm pursuing a master's degree at Columbia in organizational psychology, which goes hand in hand with a lot of what we're talking about today, because I'm really passionate about connecting the dots between business goals and employee needs to create a more informed and engaged workforce. So thanks for having me.
We're excited as well. So we only have 30 minutes and I want to leave time for Q&A, so let's dive in. For those watching, please again ask your question using the Q&A button and let's get started now. So first, as I mentioned when kicking off, we know communication is key to driving employee engagement. Before we dig in, can you tell us the relationship between employee engagement and knowledge sharing?
Sure, yeah. So, in my view, the two are really intimately connected. I think knowledge sharing is a tool or an action that you can take, it's something that you can implement at a company. But engagement is the outcome of that type of knowledge sharing. So, access to knowledge sharing is something that employees need to not access to knowledge and information is something that employees need to excel in their role and the things that they need in order to be enabled in their role. But information is also about what's going on at the company as a whole. How is the business performing? What perspectives do the executives have on a strategy? What resources or programs are at the employee's disposal? And all of that helps them be more engaged within the organization. Um, for the purposes of this conversation, I view knowledge sharing as a bit of an umbrella term. So not only is it a matter of sharing knowledge and information, like training and onboarding information as someone to help someone perform in their role or to help them when they first join an organization, but it also accounts for cross-functional collaboration, project updates, team updates, the types of things that you have meetings for with your teams. And then in my world, it's also any global communication to the whole company. So that accounts for also executive communications. So knowledge sharing is a bit of a broad term. It's a mouthful. But I think a lot of things roll up to that in order to have an engaged workforce be the outcome.
Yeah, no, thanks for defining it. I think it's important as we continue this conversation. So, what challenges do you see when it comes to creating video content for internal communication?
I think one thing is that executive buy-in is tough. Video feels very permanent; it lasts forever, and it's also a lot more personal. You know, you send a written message and it has your name next to it, but to a degree, you get to kind of hide behind the text. When you send a video, your message has your face next to it, and that can feel really high risk for executives. And both in terms of being the messenger sending the communications, and additionally in terms of people just adopting video within the organization for those like team level um, types of information sharing or the onboarding or training. So same thing, it can feel really personal and high risk.
Yeah, thanks for this answer. That's pretty direct and straight. So, but let's flip the paradigm. How would you pitch the value of video to executive at company that do not use video for internal communication? Why is video the superior medium?
Well, of course, I'm biased. I work at Vimeo, so inherently, I do believe that video is the superior medium. But I think there's a spectrum of the value, and I'll start from like the more tactical side to the more strategic side. So from the tactical side, it's I always like to highlight efficiency. Every executive loves to be more efficient with their time, with the things that they're doing, how an organization works. Efficiency is great. So, an asynchronous video communication to a company can reduce the need for a live meeting or a town hall, whether it's virtual or in person. Um, Executive schedules are really busy, and so frankly they're never going to shy away from the opportunity to have one less meeting. I do know that executives prefer to have one-on-ones with people sometimes, but schedules don't always allow for that, and so video is a great sort of compromise to still have that personal interaction but have it be at a time that's more convenient for folks, so it makes that personalization but at scale. Um, the other thing is that it's really secure. So, a lot of times when executives are communicating to their organization, they're worried about that high risk element that I mentioned, and the video getting leaked somewhere. And frankly, that can happen with written communications too. It's just the fact that like their face is tied to the message, and that can feel risky. And so, the benefit of video with Vimeo is that you can password protect your videos. You can put it behind SSO, so only people within your organization with your email address can access the video. You can also better manage the administrative access on the back end so that only a handful of folks can actually do something with the video, whether it's download it or add it to a showcase or something like that. So a limited amount of folks can have that degree of control, and that gives executives a lot of trust and security, no pun intended. Um, on the more strategic side, video can really help you reach your employees and help them retain the information that you have for them. And I think that is really important for executives. I mean, no one wants to feel like they're speaking into a void. And sometimes, unless you're having an in-person meeting, it can feel like you're just shooting off a message and you don't know how it's received, and you don't know where it's going. And I think we know through studies that employees are 75% more likely to watch a video than read an email. And when you drop that information with an executive, they're suddenly like, oh, I can get them to care more. And we also know that people retain 10 times more information in video than in text. And when you want your messages to be valuable, you want them to be received, especially if you have a call to action that you're sending to employees, you want to feel confident that they're going to receive the message and understand what you're saying. And I think with video, you really have a leg up on that. And then my last point is that it's more personal. And, that just kind of tugs at the heartstrings on the more strategic side, but it also really helps an executive feel like they're connecting with their organization. It's more human. It removes a lot of ambiguity too when you do video instead of written text.
Yeah. No, thank you for providing the data. I think that's good to know, to have that and go back to your team. But let's develop what you just said. Say a little bit more about how personal video can be. Why is it so important?
Yeah, so I think in terms of video being more personal, there's a few layers to it. So I kind of break that down just a little bit. I'll say, well, my purview has to do with internal executive communications. Like the same kind of concepts can be applied to that team or department level type of communication too. So when you talk about video being more personal, it's that human element to it. It allows executives to really showcase their authenticity. And I mentioned earlier that it removes ambiguity. So when you send off you think about doing a text exchange with someone just on your phone, and you're always kind of leaving room for interpretation. If they put a period after the end of their sentence, are they mad at me? What does that mean? They responded K versus okay. Video allows you to really interpret that tone, and it gives executives an opportunity to feel confident that their intentions are being accurately conveyed. There's a lot less room for interpretation, and that helps foster deeper connections with an audience. Because video is more personalized, it can contribute to an increase in belonging. And so when you see that someone on the other end of the screen is real and human, you can have a lot greater empathy and relatability to them. We have our transcript trimmer. You can remove ums and ahs that even I'm including in this presentation, but some of those things are what makes someone real. It's what reminds you that they're human, and it makes you relatable. It grounds you, and it, as an executive, it helps remove this like kind of title hierarchy position within the company and reminds people on the other end that you're just a human being at the end of the day. And I think that's really powerful. Um, the other thing in terms of belonging, kind of meeting people where they are with this personalization concept, is video helps people absorb the information however they do best. So in the internal comms world, we're always dealing with different channels and ways and methods to reach employees. And there's a really great internal comms thought leader that I follow, Emily Hecker, and she recently shared a great breakdown on LinkedIn on the difference between multi-channel and omni-channel strategies. And multi-channel is when employees are pushed information from a series of disconnected channels. So Slack, email, intranet, SMS, digital signage, all of the above, with really limited ability, if any, to personalize. Whereas omnichannel is harder to achieve, but it puts employees at the center so they receive personalized information for their needs and their roles, so they can opt into the way they want to do it. And I say omnichannel is hard to achieve, and it's a delicate art and science, and I think it's something that in the internal comms world, frankly, we're always marching toward. But video communication helps you get there. It's not a magic bullet. It won't solve the problem that you have overnight. It won't help you achieve an omnichannel strategy overnight, because it's a medium. It's not a channel. But it really helps because you can help employees choose how they want to receive that information. In a video, if they prefer text, they can read the transcript. If they don't have time, they can speed up the video. If it has chapters, they can skip to the area that they care the most about. And if the video is in place of a meeting, it gives them the opportunity to watch it or frankly listen to it on their own time. And so that is really considerate, and I think that really helps foster a sense of belonging via that personalization. It was a
Yeah.
really long
No.
but
Thanks for talking about that multi-channel and omni-channel. I think we have the link on the chat as well right now, so for people who want to learn more about it. But one of the things I want to go back to is we need to pause a moment here. Like you mentioned belonging, and I'm glad you did that. But because as you were talking, I was thinking about how this all relate to the company culture. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because I'm in internal comms, and this is my world, I'm a little biased, but I do feel pretty strongly that internal comms plays an enormous role in shaping, cultivating, and influencing a company's culture, especially when internal comms is viewed as a strategic partner. Um, it's by no means a single contributing factor. I would never claim that, but it really wields a lot of power when it comes to culture. And so, in terms of video and that personalization, when you're ascribing your face to your words, it means something. It makes you accountable for your word, and that helps employees understand you. And as an executive, if you're using video communications as a means to achieve that accountability, that understanding with your employee base, it can have a cascade effect throughout the organization, and other leaders start to adopt that. And suddenly it becomes a cultural shift. And culture shifts like that are most notable when they're done from the top. When the C suite is using video comms, then the next tier of leaders is using that. And suddenly that level of personalization and accountability is everywhere within an organization. And that ripple effect is frankly like liquid gold. That personalization, that ascribing who you are to what you say, that integrity is really valuable at an organization, and that can have a really big ripple effect on culture.
Thank you for talking about that. We are nearing the end of this interview, and before we move to the Q&A section, I really want to see, like, is there anything that we haven't covered here that you would like your peers and other people here to know about?
I mean, I think it's easy to say I'm biased. I work for Vimeo. We use these tools, but I really, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in the product, if I didn't believe in the power of video communications. And I think when you can start to adopt that even in slow ways. I mean, I mentioned the power of a culture shift from the top down, but it works the same way bottoms up. It might just not happen as big of a shift as the other way, but when you start adopting video communications, you start building this sense of ownership within a company. And I think, and this personalization, and in a world where you have a very distributed workforce and you might not always get to meet your manager, you might never get to meet the CEO, you might not ever cross paths in the hallway, both metaphorically or not, with the C-suite. The video helps bridge that gap just a little bit more, and I think that is really powerful and is worth considering.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I'm going to wrap up because I heard a couple of things here. So first you talk about multi-channel, omni-channel. You talk about the cascading effect as well. I think earlier you discussed the fact that people have different way to learn, and like video might be one of the best way to do that. You talk about authenticity as well. So I think we touch a lot of like pain point or like insight. So that was very good. Thank you for sharing. We are now moving to the Q&A section of this webinar, and some of the question came in, and please continue to ask your question in the Q&A section. I'm going to go to the first ones that came in here. How can video content be leveraged for internal training and development purposes?
Yeah. Well, so I won't claim to be an expert on learning and development. I do have some wonderful peers within Vimeo who lead that, but I do think, it is a form of internal communication, and I think video for training, it makes it a lot more engaging. Like I mentioned, it's a very distributed workforce period that we're in, and you're very rarely getting sort of like on or hands-on training. And so being able to do a training where you can take it at your own pace, where you can have, we have interactive capabilities. So you can click on something and go to somewhere else, and then you can come back and it saves your spot, or you can double click into a certain topic area for a training. And I think that applies for like onboarding, but it even applies for, professional development and professional growth and any courses that you want to take that an organization offers. You can add layers to it that makes it a lot more engaging and dynamic for folks. And so I think video can be a really powerful tool. And it goes back to that absorption of information that I mentioned too. Employees are 10 times more likely to absorb information through a video than text. And when you're doing a training, like that's all you want. You want them to retain that information. So that's really powerful.
Yeah. The next question here is what tactics can be employed to ensure employees are getting the messages across the organization?
That is a big question. I think I talked about the difference between multi-channel and omni-channel, and putting employees at the center and that degree of personalization is really helpful. But I think the other thing is it requires buy-in and engagement from all levels of the organization that wield a degree of power. So the C-suite, the next level down of leaders, department heads, team leaders, people managers. They need to understand the role that they play in internal communications. And I think that is forever going to be a learning journey for folks in my position. But I mentioned that cascade a few minutes ago of when the C-suite sends a message and then folks below them start to adopt it. And the same can be applied for any sort of messaging. When you equip leaders and tell them, hey, we need you to help push this message with your teams. Give them the language, send them the video link, tell them to record it, tell them what to do, and cascade that down. That's really helpful to kind of cast a wider net in getting a message out to an organization. The only other thing I will add to is using analytics to your advantage. With our product, you can see team level analytics. So you can see how many team members and in what departments within an organization have watched your video. And so if you're really trying to target the engineering org and you can see that the engineers haven't watched the video, like there's an opportunity for you to optimize. And I think make sure you're using those analytics and those tools and those types of insights to your advantage.
The next question here is what advantage does Vimeo have over recording in an MS Teams and sharing to SharePoint within existing security system?
Ooh, that's a good question. I will not pretend to be a security system expert. I will tell you that right now. But what I do know is that it's a lot more seamless, and our security standards are really high at this organization. And we just brought on a chief information security officer about a year ago, and has been really implementing security protocols for our, like, not only within our organization, because that is a thing too, but also for our products, for our customers, because if we don't have the trust of our customers and we can't guarantee that our videos are secure, then what are we here for? And so that is really important to us. And being able to, I mean, you can embed Vimeo in a SharePoint website, for example, or in a SharePoint site. Um, but I think the ability to password protect, put it behind SSO, give administrative access to select individuals, I think that's really helpful. I hope that answered your question. I don't want to pretend to be a security expert when I'm not. So apologies.
No, but I think that's a good way to close, actually, really talking about like that security aspect. And please feel free to reach out to us directly as well,
Yeah.
using our contact form to follow up and have like more information about that. So, Dom, thank you very much for digging in, for sharing your insight about how we can leverage video to boost employee engagement. Thank you very much for all of that. If anybody has any question, please feel free to follow up with us directly as well. We'll send you this recording. Otherwise, have a great day, a great evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.